So let's see how we do.
So imposter syndrome is a topic we're going to talk about. Now, this is a big topic for a lot of people. When you think about like physical illnesses, top physical illnesses can range from like, common cold happens to a lot of people. The flu is much worse. I think right now probably COVID hits top of the list when you think of physical illnesses. But when you think of mental illnesses, you think about anxiety, you think about depression. But when you look at the numbers of everything out there, imposter syndrome is probably the number one by a large distance to even number two. Feeling like a fraud. I was writing someone saying, this is the way I look at defining imposter syndrome. Where did I write it?
You guys must have seen this movie, right? We're going to share this a little bit, but catch me if you can. If you didn't see the movie, we're going to ruin it a little bit. This is Leonardo, right? He becomes an imposter. He's pretending and acting as a pilot. So we're going to share this. I'll share with you guys. We gave this talk. I gave a talk about this in 2014. Yeah.
So I shared this with someone just this week saying that imposter syndrome, this is greater than anxiety and depression. It's a feeling of being inadequate, a feeling of being a fraud. And social media has affected and infected everyone on this planet, even more than COVID, of feeling less than other people you know. That's imposter syndrome. And so that's what we're going to go into depth and cover. So but before I do, two quick announcements, right? So let me just do this first. So I'm going to, one is I'll show you, so I'm going to do number one, I'll do number two. So number one is a future of work. What I believe, and we've been told by many right now, that I think it's going to be the single biggest event in 2021, which is going to be a physical, and we'll also stream virtually, a future of work event. It's going to be limited in capacity physically to only 300 people. Our office is done in July, and we have the who's who of people already trying to get seats to attend this event. Of course, COVID safe, vaccines and the whole 9 yards. If there's an explosion of the fourth wave in the US, we'll have to move it, of course. But assuming all that, by August is good. Saturday, August 14th, save the date. We're gonna have people apply and have a whole selection process where you'll have to cover your own travel costs, but if it is prohibitive, we're also gonna offer scholarships. Scholarships to cover your airfare as well as hotel, but it's gonna be a Saturday event. I'm just gonna let you read this page here. So maybe Chris, Kelly, just give me a thumbs up once you're done reading it. So this is details of the event. Okay, so it's gonna be very hard to get physical seats. We'll have, obviously, I'll have less limitation in virtual, but anybody, by the way, in the leadership think tanks, A and B, we're gonna send you an email very shortly. You're gonna get an automatic VIP invite for yourself plus a guest, right? So travel's not included, but once again, if you can't afford it and have, financial difficulty there, scholarships available as well. So keep this in mind, okay? This is gonna be a huge event. And as you can see, we will be optional lunch. The reason why, by the way, it's 2 to 5 is that a lot of the wealthiest people, if you interact with them, they literally will private jet in that morning and leave that evening. So it's easier to even get to. Saturday makes it even better for them. So all of that considered, it will be a very cool event. And we're already looking at seat shortages everywhere. We haven't even begun the application process. So, all right. So part two, want to give an update on the social capitalist. I think we shared this in one of our earlier LIP classes, this whole idea of training on a better me basis, then training on a better you basis, which is kind of the idea of you fill your cup so that you can fill others. And the cycle of that is actually what makes it healthy. In fact, all great communities have a give and take balance built over time versus just a, take is usually not a community. That's usually a transaction that people go to for places. But the greatest examples, the whole process of actually having LIP, then building these small group workshops of resiliency training, the pre-resiliency, moving to leadership think tank B to A, where we've been screening and looking at all the stuff. And we've been culminating up to what we wanted to do, which is we said from the beginning, if you want to fix the world, rather than having one organization, very wealthy billionaires or whatnot, deciding where their money goes, it's better to empower in micro levels individuals who can go fix the world. The idea is 1,000 individuals that know how to find the good ones and then go make that change. So as of today, we're going to announce our first social capitalist. So Laura, if you can help me spotlight this individual, let me go into a little bit of detail here. So Laura, can you spotlight us and the individual? I don't know if I can see it.
Yeah, there he
Is
is.
it spotlighted? So I can't see it.
Apparently.
Do I have the
But
wrong
we
view?
don't see it spotlighted, but it's spotlighted.
Okay. Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay,
There
we
you
see it.
are.
All right,
Yeah.
Mackie.
They're
All
doing
right.
the virtual Mackie.
So Coach Mackie,
Virtual
those of you who don't
clapping.
know, so a couple of things, Mackie. I had this conversation with my wife, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of like a lifetime kind of thing. So we're starting with the first gate, which is we are providing $100,000 per year in capital for Mackie to help whoever he wants to help. And Mackie, by the way, we work in calendar years, meaning it's not like from April to next year April. So you have 100,000 to give away, right? From now till end of December, and then starting January 1, you get another 100,000. There's no carryover, so you got to spend it, right? Spend it as in doing good and giving. So 100,000 a year. And a couple of things, sort of one advice I have, and this is up to you, because we are trusting you to go do the right thing. But my advice is maybe consider gating it, meaning the first gate, just move fast, right? Maybe even this month, this week, 20,000. Then, as in not, you can split it whichever increment you want. Gate 2, try 30. And then the last gate, spend the remaining 50. And I say this because giving, just like any other sport, takes practice to learn how to do it better.
Yeah.
So I want to help.
I think it'd be easy, but it's,
There's always challenges. What I want you to do is this, the discussion board for leadership and practice on LIP. If you can help us do two things there. One is help share what you've been doing on a better me basis, as well as better you, so others can see exactly like how you basically get to be the next social capitalist. Yeah. And Mackie has done some of the best work from this group on both fronts, not only improving himself, but he has done more work in creating small workshops and other things to help other people. So even in our community, in this team, outside this team. So please share that in the discussion board. The other thing I want you to do is in the giving, create transparency for the whole community on the discussion board. Who you're helping, how much and why, maybe even have them put some comments in. And the reason is this, is unlike most corporations where they will say you can only donate and give money to approved 501c nonprofits. No, Mackie, this is we trust you. Yeah. If it's a local restaurant in your neighborhood that is struggling and you choose to help them with $5,000, that is your prerogative. Any increment, as often as you want, right? What we are doing is saying, if you find 1,000 individuals that you can give, our gate 1 was 100,000 a year, right? Every year, so it's consistent. Right. Gate 2 is then we up it to $1 million a year. Gate 3 is 10 million a year, where we are looking to create 1,000 of these individuals, and you are the first of them. So we're excited, we're proud. Please join me in congratulating Mackie.
Yay.
And I asked Mackie, we have simple rules. Don't be an asshole and just continue
rules.
working on better me, better you, and we're all good. Right? So
anything to say, Mackie?
No, of course. Thank you so much. It's a huge honor to be the first of many to come and kind of changing the world as a community. I love the word community. I love the COA community. My Steady Buckets community is so important to me. And when you guys first mentioned this, what really came to mind is to think about potentially having this opportunity. I thought of all the people who helped me get to where I am today. I thought of the first people that believed in me when I was coaching 10 or 20 kids and the program was growing. I think I told the story, but I'll share it with everyone. I run a youth nonprofit basketball organization in New York City. Pre-COVID, we were serving over 2,500 kids a year. New York City has, I think it's 172 zip codes, and we had over 150 zip codes represented in our program. So we serve kids from all over New York City. And literally in year 1.5, going into year 2, I was this close to accepting a spot in the Teachers Fellows program and becoming a public school teacher. And that would have been fine. I could have been happy as a teacher, but literally I remember the first $10,000 donation that we received by someone who's become a really close friend. And for that, that kind of said, well, maybe this could be, something that I can do long term. Maybe this is an organization I can grow into something more than just a handful of kids in the neighborhood. Maybe I can build it into something special. And literally without that first check, generosity, I never would have had I think I would have given up on my dream. And to have the opportunity to help other people who are in a similar situation, wanting to do good in the world, but not quite seeing it as a realistic plan, not seeing how to get to A to B to pay the bills while doing what they want to do to help the world become a better place. Thinking about being in that position to find those people in the early stages of a nonprofit or a profit or whatever it is, but somebody who has a vision to help the world, but not necessarily a way to help the world and pay the bills at the same time. And to think about doing that for other people is a tremendous gift, something I take a lot of pride in. So thank you both very much. And I'll take the responsibility very seriously, because I know how much it meant to me, and being able to pay that back for other people and see other people kind of take their organizations to the next level through this process is just incredible. So thank you. I look forward to welcoming
Happy for you, Mackie.
fellows.
Mackie, you're such a model
Thank you.
example.
But-
Yeah,
but-
you're a
but-
model example, right? Of
But
like
can I tell you what I
better
love
me
is
and
that,
better you.
but in better me, better you, we say in our shirts to do the little things so that others can do the great things they're meant to do. This is little to us. And for us to be able to commit to you literally every year at this level, and hopefully we'll up it if you see you do amazing things.
Yeah.
And from there, the ability for you to go take that firepower and change other people's lives, make the world better. This is the very reason we run our company. It's the very, very reason we do everything we do. So this is awesome.
Can't wait to see what you do with it, Mackie. This is so fun.
I'm excited.
Cool. All right.
Happy.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Call community.
Cool. All right. So we're going to go back. We're going to go into the presentation. We're going to give the
Yes.
lesson so we can go to all the right stuff here. So let me do this. Okay. All right. Can you see our slides? Yeah. All right. Give me a second. There we go. Lesson.
Okay. Lesson. So this is about probably 15 minutes, and we're going to get into coaching to individuals. But so the lesson today is on imposter syndrome. So it takes one to know one. So I'm gonna give you guys this lesson. I'm gonna hand it off to Charlie halfway through and some of the newest work on this. But this is a presentation I gave in 2014 about the imposter syndrome, and the solution was all around kind of this no LHF. You guys have heard us talk about no lying, hiding, faking, and really this was kind of the solution to when you feel like an imposter, stop lying, hiding, faking, because that's what you're spending so much time doing. So, but again, this was just back in 2014, and I'll explain to you kind of what ended up happening for me. I mean, I don't know if any of you, this is the best way for me to describe what an imposter feels like. Those of you who felt like this before, you know that feeling, and this was me like in 2010. If anyone ever figured out how little I know, I would be fired. That's literally what it feels like to be an imposter. If anyone knew what was really in here, they would fire me. So what do you do when you feel that way? You hide stuff, right? And so that's how I felt. And so Jim Lear, some of you, we've mentioned him before. He's a best-selling author, 18 bestseller books. He runs the Human Performance Institute down in Florida. Had an opportunity to get coaching by him. And I remember him saying to me, Megan, you felt like you're the only one. He was like, it's called the imposter syndrome. I remember thinking like, what? I have a thing called the imposter syndrome? Like, what is that? It's like, there's a cream for that? He said, it takes tremendous energy to cover this up. Tremendous energy. You may have sensed you're the oddball out, but you are normal. This is life. This is what happens, right? So fast forwarding to this, Catch Me If You Can, like I mentioned before, he's an imposter. He's acting like, do you want to look at the chat on here? He's acting like a pilot, if you didn't see the movie, right? And all the girls are swarming him. He's totally pretending, feels awesome. He's an amazing pilot. But if you ever watch the full movie, if you look at the end of it, this is what it looks like at the end of the movie. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to pretend to be somebody that you're not. It is exhausting. So that's what it looks like. It's not good. And so I don't know, those of you who read the book in Everyone Culture, this is the book. I might have to move this over, but this is the book that we, so let me just move this over so I can see. But this is the book that Next Jump was in. We were recognized as one of 3 companies deliberately developmental by Harvard Business Review. And this is the first page of their book describing what this is. So I'm going to read it out loud to you. They talked about in any ordinary organization, Most people are doing a second job no one is paying them for. In businesses large and small, government agencies, schools, hospitals, for-profits, and nonprofits, and in any country in the world, most people are spending time and energy covering up their weaknesses, managing other people's impressions of them, showing themselves to their best advantage, playing politics, hiding their inadequacies, hiding their uncertainties, hiding their limitations. They're hiding. He said, we regard this team of authors, we regard this as the single biggest loss of resources that organizations suffer every day. You think about that, this big loss of resources that organizations suffer today. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Like, what does that mean? How do you know? What does that look like? How do you measure that? How do you know you're losing resources on people basically being in their head, playing politics, and managing impressions, brand management? What is that? What is that? How do you measure that? How do you look at, how do you even think about that in your company, in your team, for yourself? We spent time with neuroscientists. I think Charlie's mentioned this before, actually working with Doc Peter Gorman, the doctor Charlie was mentioning before, worked very closely with the Patriots, which we love, and Tom Brady, and they're looking for when he was in the Patriots, but any way to make him smarter, better at the game of football and a physical sport, to work on the brain. And you know what's interesting, as we worked with them, what they told us, in the brain, these are neuroscientists, in your brain, they can see that it actually takes more energy to lie than to tell the truth. It takes more energy. It takes 2/3 energy. If you're in a week, you're wasting 2/3 of your time. When you're lying, you're hiding, you're faking. When you're doing that, when you're doing the second job that no one's paying you for, that's taking 2/3 of your energy. When I taught this years ago, I titled it "How to Get Back 2/3 of Your Week," which is basically how to save you time, because you're spending so much time lying, hiding, faking versus telling the truth. It's that hard, and it takes that much energy to lie. So this was all in the neuroscience, all the research, and all the data. So when we looked up, just Googling right last night, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, if you don't know, it's fascinating. I did not know this. It actually was first described by psychologists in 1978, was the first time they sort of diagnosed this and came up with a label for what it feels like to feel like a fraud. And it can affect anyone. They said, regardless of job or social status, but high achieving individuals often experience this. So think about when you get a promotion, as you get more senior in your career, especially, and that's usually what these companies, these coaches are coaching people who have gotten to a higher level in their career, and they feel like, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. I was promoted, I should know. But what's fascinating is they're seeing that this can hit anyone. And this is hitting children, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds now. It's hitting everybody, feels like an imposter, because of social media, the world, and the way that it is now. This syndrome impacts children. So inferiority complex, if you just read at the bottom left hand, it talks about these neurotic symptoms are traced, this feeling of inferiority is traced to overcompensating for this feeling. You're overcompensating. So on the right-hand side, this is what overcompensation looks like. So for you do it, you know, people who do it, what are the signs of this? They try to make you feel insecure. So people who are feeling like an imposter, right? They feel inferior. They're trying to make you feel insecure. They're constantly seeking validation from other people. They're always talking about their achievements. They complain a lot. They're overly sensitive to criticism. They regularly criticize others, right? It's like, who are these crazy people? By the way, this is all of us. They have frequent mood swings. And you know, mood swings come out, especially in the workplace, as very passive aggressive, especially when you're more seasoned, more senior, more experienced. You get really good at this, and like it's awful, but like in an evil kind of way, to take out your aggressiveness, your frustration, your feelings of inadequacies, and put it on other people. They often withdraw from social situations. So this is literally what the overcompensation looks like. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think about the best visual representation of it is this idea that you feel like an imposter, you feel inferior. Despite, I mean, this child here on a hot day has a popsicle, right? Should be beaming and smiling, but look at his face, something's not right. And so that overcompensation is because he's busy watching this. What social media has done, we feel inadequate to everyone. And although this term was coined, labeled as a mental illness in 1978, right? Smack in the middle towards the tail end of the industrial era, right? The industrial age. What you see is that it didn't get better. The solutions and people seeking out therapists and psychologists and all types of meditation programs, coaching, everything you can imagine to attack imposter syndrome. The revenue in this field has exploded. And what should eventually have correlated, and if it works, going down, instead it had the total opposite. They're making more money in this field, and the number of cases exploded so much, the graphs literally look like hockey sticks. And the crazy part was this: when we spent time, I want to say 2 decades ago, a decade ago, with the best of the field who helped the highest of high people. They always talked about imposter syndrome was really a senior level issue. So they trained and taught us and shared with us how they help senior level people deal with it, because that's where it really exists once you get promoted. But the data now shows, and it shows up in crazy data even down to suicides. It's showing up in like children as young as 7 years old, feeling inferior. As others talk about, you should see my parents and the house we have and the place we go on vacation, and then look at these pictures and look what I ate and what I have. Like, I have, 2 iPads and 2 phones, and it's like everyone feels like this kid with the popsicle. And so the solution has generally been affirmations, right? No. Gratitude, you're happy. The positivity movement, right? Rewrite your negative narratives. You're being too negative on yourself. And by the way, those things do work, but for a very small percentage of people. The majority of us, it's no different than saying, do not think about the pink elephant in the room. And the more
you're told not to,
the more like that. I think the guy you read said the BS meter in our heads. You're telling me not to feel inferior, but I do. And now I can't talk about it.
Now you can't talk about it. So now you feel more shame about it. So now you feel more like an imposter and more alone, which is awful.
Because
you feel more alone.
Every friend you have has told you, don't talk to me that way. Don't talk that way. Don't talk to yourself that way. But it's now gone inside.
Yeah, you're denying your feelings. So now I feel like I can't talk about it. Chris is saying, reminds me of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's sometimes the people that are most confident who have the least confidence in that confidence.
But can I tell you what's
opposite of that?
No, but except that makes sense. The Dunning-Kruger, obviously the more experienced, more executive, more senior, yes. That's how it should have gone. And that's what it was in the industrial era. In the digital era, which is this next 21st century, something went wrong. When imposter is showing up in a 7-year-old, how do you explain 7-year-olds having to go to therapists to deal with feeling like an imposter? 7-year-old knows nothing. They don't have seniority and whatnot. Like, why are they having imposter syndrome showing up there? And if it's showing up at 7-year-olds, showing up everywhere else. So how do we understand this problem, get to the root of it? And is there a way to even measure it, right? Because oftentimes if you can't see something, and that's the problem, physical, when I gain weight, when I actually have sniffles, you can see it. It's easier to fix. But all the top psychologists who spend time with, they say most of the problems human beings have is 15% from the physical body. 85% is mental, meaning the super majority of our issues are mental. And the problem is this: no one can see it unless you tell me about it. Right? And what happens if I don't quite understand it? It's a feeling I can't describe. I feel icky, ugly. And people told me, don't talk about this, don't say this, use these words, not those words. This thing has gone underground in so many ways. It shows up in so much data now. It is the #1. We get called to speak at a lot in wellness and health conferences. Over the years, it shifted from physical wellness, exercise, nutrition, and sleep, to almost every topic now is on mental wellness, mental health. This problem is so big. And how do you fix something you can't see? How do you fix something that you can't measure? And so this is something that we have been trying to attack for over a decade in every expert research. And I think the beginnings of that solution is what I'm going to walk you through that we found. It comes back to the developmental GPS. GPS, by the way, stands for growth prevention as well as propulsion. So in this lesson, we're going to cover the prevention. You have to realize there's two sides of most things. Imposter syndrome also has two sides. There's a side that is like the brakes in the car, and the other side is how do you step on the gas and move forward. Cars don't move forward when you have your foot on the brake.
Sorry, just interesting. Actually, Hamish is asking, does a small amount of imposter syndrome help you grow? And actually, because Josh Hayes, you had mentioned a lot of people get promoted when they kind of master what they're doing. You get promoted to the next thing, and now naturally you're not going to be as good at that. So that is part of life. That is how growth happens.
The whole Amy Cuddy, you fake it till you make it, has its place.
Yeah, you can't reduce it down to nothing.
But what happens if you don't know if you're faking it or not? Right. What happens when the gap between you're faking it is so great to what you actually are that you're not improving and you keep faking it? And you know how that shows up? It shows up in what we call gaps in awareness. How you see yourself, how you think of yourself versus how others around you see you. This has shown up a lot of when it comes to human beings, and especially things like body weight or blood pressure and things, or even getting your blood drawn, things that you cannot physically measure, the mind. Nothing, no machine in the world measures the mind, as of yet, better than other human beings who are close to you. And what the developmental GPS is exactly that. What you're seeing here is this. Look at the shaded color. The blue is the self-evaluation on these 5 different data points of how we actually apply our judgment, how we apply decisions in our life, how we think, how we act, how we think small, how we think big. 5 different pressure points, focal points. The blue is how you see yourself. The others, right? So we have a green, which is peers, the orange, which is coach, and there's a new one, which is family, which we're going to show you as well, which you can use. And the distance between, so if you look at number 2 here, the distance between the blue versus how everyone else sees you, that gap is energy wasted. That is that second job. That is that perception. And so everywhere there's a gap, and in this case, number 4, it's a slight gap between I see myself further out versus the peers say, now it's not quite that far out, it's a little in. So we're going to show you live examples as we coach, but I'm going to walk you through what this means. I have just 2 more slides here, I think. So feeling imposter, feeling inferior, basically synonymous. What ends up happening over time? You end up overcompensating. We feel inferior at any given point. Try something new, you feel inferior, right? Everyone tells you you're great and suddenly you start to feel inferior. The problem is when we don't get to the root cause and try to fix or address what the issue is, our body and our mind overcompensates. That overcompensation is what we call manipulation zone. That list Megan showed. And you know what happens when we manipulate? We actually aren't fully engaged and paying attention in the game because we're actually bluffing. It's like playing a game of poker. I forget how to play the game because I'm so busy trying to manipulate everyone. Act like I have good cards or act like I have bad cards when it's not true. And so then when the game is moving really fast, we miss signals. We miss stuff happening because we're so busy, as Megan said, lying, hiding, faking, that we miss the things and we go oblivious. The more oblivious we go, right? We then start to manipulate more. And this vicious cycle is actually the root cause of how we get stuck, all because of feeling like an imposter. So when we shared with you, right, those different zones, right? Zone 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 different ways that you see how you see yourself versus how others see you. This is a scoring of, think of the left column when I say 1, self-scoring versus others scoring you. I want you to think of it this way. I'm going to show you this twice so that you can kind of understand it better. When you get a 1-1, right? You don't think you're doing well, others think you're not. Or 2-2, you're getting bare adequate. Think of this as no energy spent, which is 1-1, or 2-2 is minimum energy spent. But when you have this gap, whether it's a 1-2 or 1-3 or 1-4, right? When you have a gap between the two, this is where the problem starts to come. The distance between how you think of yourself versus how others view you is wasted energy. And there are 2 different forms of wasted energy. One is self-energy, acting, lying, hiding, faking. Lying takes more energy than the truth. The other one is, when you think you're so funny or smart and others don't.
And you're oblivious to that.
They have to walk in eggshells around you. And this list Megan showed is just probably the top list of things we do, right? This is the list of how we overcompensate, how we actually manipulate. Before you know it, the game is moving at such a high speed and we miss it. So same thing another way. Here's another way to look at it, right?
Same zones, repeated error, oblivious, but we're focusing on the oblivious and manipulation. Point is, there's two sides of imposter syndrome, right? There's the manipulation and then the oblivious, and it's like they feed on each other. We're saying it's like this awful chain reaction.
You oscillate. And by the way,
you can't get out of it.
By the way, we have this discussion. Every human being, as in to be human, is to spend time in all four of these zones. Do not think this is not me, or do not think, oh my God, no. We all spend time in these zones in different times, different parts of our life. Sometimes in a course of one day, you may visit all four, but hopefully it's not that crazy. But meaning you need to learn. I mean, when in football, zone defense or basketball zone, you need to know how to play in each of these zones. Defense. Then eventually we'll spend time on offense. Next week we're thinking offense. Yes. But this is all about defense, because you can't play offense if you don't know how to play defense, right? Meaning you can't even get in the game if you don't know how to take your foot off the brake. And this is all about self-harm in many ways, self-mental harm. And the reason we focused on 2 and 3, not 1 and 4, is this. That we do spend time in 1 and 4. We'll cover that in another session, but 80 to 95% of where things go wrong occurs between 2 and 3, and they feed into each other. We're not paying attention. We're not fully engaged because we're so busy lying, hiding, faking. Right, the line. Yeah,
you can't play the game when you're in your head.
That's and the game being like, you have to get the job done.
You gotta get the job done.
It can be parenting. It could be anything, right?
Yeah. When you're in your head, you can't do it.
And you know what's happened in the digital era that's different than the industrial era? Information is coming at us faster than it ever has and in greater volume. So the example I was telling Megan is this: if you ever play poker tournaments or watch World Series of Poker, as the tournament starts to get towards the end, they try to accelerate the game. They speed up the clock, they speed up the blinds.
Like a lightning round.
It's a lightning round.
Yeah.
So our entire lives have just become lightning rounds. And you know what happens when you have lightning rounds? You need to pay attention to every data point, every signal. It's moving so fast. But see what happens when you start in zone 3? I'm so busy trying to manage how I look, and do they think I'm smart? Do they look like I'm paying attention? Do I look like I don't care? Whatever it might be, we're spending time doing that 2/3 of the brain playing politics and trying to focus on how I look to the group. I didn't pay attention. So now I start to be oblivious. And now someone might say, wait, did you not follow? Now you have to act like, oh no, of course I did. So now you start, this cycle is vicious and people can't get out of this. So how do you understand the root element of this cycle right here, and then how do we solve for it? So in terms of solutions, I'm going to start with being oblivious. The first thing is this: when you are oblivious, RAB stands for red arrow behaviors. That simply means we do something consciously or unconsciously to make it difficult for someone to give me the truth. We have to dial that down.
We might act hostile. We might act really fragile. We might deflect every criticism back at the other person. Like so many things we do, just
dial that down, and you have to dial up what research calls the ladders of inference. When you say something, you have to explain, well, I'm saying this because these are the assumptions and this is my logic, how I'm processing it. We tend not to share the assumptions and logic because that's how we can get criticized, laughed at, like, you really think that? Like, yes, that's what we don't volunteer. So we need to start dialing down, not turn off, because this is very hard. Human beings aren't on-off switches. Machines are on-off switches. So you have to dial one down, dial the other one up. Then when you look at manipulation, it has a similar thing. Dial down. There's little actions we do that manage how you look, manage the optics. We need to dial that down and instead dial up thinking out loud. And when I say thinking out loud, most of us do not struggle thinking out loud on the good stuff and the positive stuff. Oh my God, Mackie, you're amazing. Yes. Oh my God, wow. Recognition, praise, not the issue. Where we fall apart and struggle to think out loud in near real time isn't the ugly stuff. It's what we call conflict or potential conflict. Something you did I don't like, it's what we call NQRs, not quite right. We can't put NQRs on the table in front of people in real time. I'm going to tell you later. Well, later never happens.
Later never happens.
And when you do these two things, right, this is why we built these two programs. PRT helps you oblivious. RT is where you go after PRT. It helps you attack this second part of manipulation. So that was the lesson. And this is all defense, by the way, because to win in life, you have to score points, which is offense. We'll cover offense next week.
Yeah, and
So-
and Nell was she just did the Dev GPS and she was labeled a armchair professor. I think what's interesting is we're getting into such a level of nuance now with these more specific, more prescriptive zones that you fall in based on the gap in awareness, which is really interesting. So I think at the high level, it's saying you're spending more time in the thinking work than the actual doing, right? When we think about them.
And you will see, I don't care what job you have now. I don't care if you're an engineer, if you're a salesperson, if you're a customer service person, doesn't matter what job you have anywhere. Decision making is the majority of everyone's job. You have to make customer decisions. You have to make collaboration decisions, coding decisions, product decisions. And to be able to do that right, we need to be able to sense make, right? They call it the OODA loop, right? So make sense of it and act correctly. And the speed of OODA looping now is so high in terms of the requirement to win. The games got fast.
You know what's interesting? She's saying, I prefer to play sports than watch them. So she's like trying to reconcile that, right?
What's the question?
So she's saying, I just did mine, armchair professor, which is, in sports, you don't play, but you act like an expert. But I prefer to play than watch.
Of course. But we all have to play. Life moves on. You can't not participate in life.
Right.
The sport of life is
But
moving on.
I think it's almost like when you see an area in your life at home or not at work where you're like, oh no, I'm not an armchair. I like to actually get into the work. But at work, it looks like you're not. I think it's the fear, right? Because you're the same person. So it just means that you're overcompensating for something, right? At work. You're afraid to either put yourself out there, get criticized, right?
That at home is just as much. You look at a lot of couples, how many unspoken elements show up? I can't imagine you don't have a spouse who hasn't acted oblivious. And then they haven't done something. You're like, wait, they're trying to manipulate me in something. They're trying to convince me that all the things I've been telling them for the last 10 years, that they were right and I was wrong, right? Think of how many things happen where you're like, are we having a real conversation or is this like a giant poker game? Yeah. Who's bluffing and who's telling the truth, right? How fast is this game moving? And then add children on top of it, add friends, add social media, add parents, add this, and add every self-help advice that's out there. Good luck. Good luck navigating this game and not feeling like I need some pills to calm down, right? Get some CDB so I can stop thinking about this stuff. Yeah,
Christy's saying, and then you add COVID on top of it.
Right.
And
add COVID.
Perfect.
Right? Oh yeah. Home Alone. With your own thoughts. There was when I can't struggle. I was watching. I heard if you can't struggle sleeping at night, one way to do it is just watch comedy. So this guy Joe Rogan, I guess, did a comedy thing before, and he was saying, "This is how typical we act as human beings. I do something, I go like this, and someone says, "Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna do more of it." So you just do more of it, right? And then I say something, and everyone's like, "Oh, don't do any of that or anything related to that." Yeah, that's how we operate. Like based on the reaction of other people, I start doing a lot more of something and I stop doing anything.
But if people don't tell you the truth because you've made it hard to tell you the truth, now you keep doing that thing and saying that thing and thinking that's okay.
Yes. And then what does the person do? And they're like, I think they're doing it because of me, but they look like an idiot now. They look like they got to stop. But
and then I don't want to tell them to stop.
It goes haywire. All right. So to show you actually examples. So let's go into the workshop. We're going to do what we call a 10X. It came from a game show that became one of the best ways to train people. So everyone turn your cameras off, maybe except for, she'll start with Amy. So Amy Chen, keep your camera on. Everyone else turn your camera off. And this will help Amy focus. So I think Amy's been prepped.
Are we using the 10X app?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
sure. Shoot.
Geez.
So I gotta get
Hold
my
on
phone.
1 second.
Give me 1 second.
We're using this thing called 10X. We have an app built for this, so we can actually watch both presenters, let you guys go and explain, and then we'll give you a score and then explain our letters of inference, right?
Yes. And so, by the way, you are also participating in this. So the one thing you have to do is all of you open up the feedback app. You're going to need it because you are going to live coach and give a score from 1 to 4 on Amy's presentation. It's going to be 5 minutes. So if you can, open the feedback app. If you can, find Amy. It's Amy Chin, Chin. Should be in there. And you're going to score her 1 to 4. And 1 basically says she's going the wrong direction. 2 is like, you're going the right direction, but I don't think you can sustain it. 3 is like sustainment, right? I think if I look 6 months from now, I think you'll still do right things.
Exceeded my expectations.
4 is basically like model example. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then comment So you're going to have 2 minutes to be able to give her feedback after she goes. Then you're going to see us live do the same thing. So with that, I'm just going to turn over to Amy and mute myself. And then Amy, turn your camera on, Amy, so we can see you.
The presenter coming up is Amy. You have 5 minutes to present.
Okay, hi there. So this is my development GPS. As you can see, I have self-score myself. It's kind of below expectation. My peer, I have about 9 ratings. They've scored me 13 out of 20, which meets the expectations. And the coach, which is Rosie and Miranda, from my PRT coach, and you can if you see there are 3 ratings. So one of them is my head of department. I got him and get him to rate me as well. Overall, in general, I can see myself, I rate myself so much lesser than my peers and coaches. I tend to be stronger in the doing skills, which I'm kind of aligned because I'm a person who do stuff, and I'm quite weak in my thinking skills. And I think it's kind of right because I struggle to create ideas or to determine a goal. So if you go to the next slide, if you go, please, Nayan. So I'll go on into discipline. So in general, I'm a disciplined person. I can stay focused and I'm happy to tackle difficult topics and I do not give up easily. My peers, I'll just pick a few to name a few. People say that I tackles difficult topics on a daily basis. I always strive to improve and I look for better solutions when I'm facing most challenging situations. I also put a lot of effort in what I do. I'm diligent and I'm persistent. I deliver what is required and I exhibit strong discipline, and I'm hard work and I focus on the right projects. I meet deadlines and I strive for continuous improvement. Next, please. And I go to the coaches. Coaches have commented that I'm deliberately going into a more difficult topics. I'm not shying away from PRT. I invest a lot of energy consistently into my presentations. And another comment was saying that since I joined my new role in my current company since lockdown, I have tried to find my ways to work around. And my line manager was signed off sick for 3 months. And this has not been easy for me. And I'm required to work very closely with the head of department, which is like 3 grades above me, and there's a lot of pressure. However, I've been diligent and focused. I'm a self-starter and work hard in building relationships and key stakeholders. And next, please. I'm a very direct person and I have no issue giving feedback, and I'm an authentic person. Basically, I expect the other person to be authentic as well. So in terms of no LHF, I have no issue on that. And if I look overall, my peers has rated me meet expectation 2 and above, which is kind of a line of what my expectation is. Next, please. My coaches as well, and I think they think that I'm direct and no problem in giving feedback and receiving feedbacks. Next, please. In terms of future outlook, I gave myself 1 because I think that's the skill that I need to work on. I know what I want in my current role and in my current department. I know that I want to help my department by using my technical skills. However, I think the expectations of my HOD is that he sees me kind of like a business analyst or consulting, and he wants kind of like expect me to help them to create a process, which I'm a bit nervous of because I do not have skills in business analysis as a business analyst or consultancy. So henceforth, I only put myself 1. However, if you see the peers, they think highly of me. And again, like there's a gap. And next, please. Coaches as well. So yeah, so I think there's a weaker muscle that the thing that I need to improve on as well. I think one of the coach also said that I'm prepared to challenge thinking and correct misunderstanding. Next, please. Right. Should I stop? Time's up.
If there's any like last point that you want to make, Amy, go ahead. If there's one like summary of.
All right. Yeah. So in general, I think I'm strong in doing skills, and which is right because in all of my roles in my current in all the companies that I work, I'm a hands-on person, and I like to do things, and I like to see result as well. And I think I'm in a transition of a more leadership role right now, and I'm struggling. And I would like some coaching and clarity from you. How do I reach that? Because there's a bridge that I need to cross into a more leadership role, where a leadership, I believe a leader is one who is able to see an overall picture, to see from the top, whereas the person who do the things are more detailed and more hands-on. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Audience, you have 2 minutes to enter your feedback in the feedback app for Amy. Please use DevGPS 10X as the meeting tag. Ten seconds remaining. Judges, please enter your rating in the 10X app. Judge ratings. 1, 2.
Hey, whoever is driving, can you do me a favor and just share the
Dev
GPS so we can
slide.
just, as we coach her through this. So Amy, I'm sure your heart's beating like very fast. I appreciate you doing this. I know
Yeah.
it's always hard to do in front of other people, and
Yeah.
we've never met, so we're strangers. Yeah. So the thing that you didn't address when it comes to just leadership or any of this, awareness is the foundation. Like imagine kind of trying to do anything, and for athletes, are your feet planted in the ground? If you're trying to drive somewhere, where's the starting point? Awareness is the starting point. If you look at your graphs here between self, which is in the middle, then the coach or coaches and your peers, and you had enough peers to put in data, nothing matches, not even one intersecting data point. And one of the dangers in today's world is this: we've all been convinced sounding arrogant is bad, but false humility, even if false, is good. That's not true. If you want to win in life, you have to get to the truth. Getting either side wrong, over exaggerating or under exaggerating, either way is bad. You need to know the truth. And in the entire presentation, I gave you one because you didn't do the job of addressing the gaps in awareness. And I'll give you maybe the most extreme example. Look at number 4 in the Dev GPS. This is the big ideas, right? In fact, when I read some of the comments, someone wrote, Amy is visionary. In number 4, they said Amy is visionary. That means we need a big idea to get out of this problem or spend a ton of money on. Put Amy in charge of it. She's like the best here. But you're saying, that's not true. But they think you are. So the question is, what are you doing to make them believe you are that good in the big ideas? Being good at doing, fine, but being good at also doing big ideas, big, bold actions, that's a dangerous one because the risk is higher when someone will give you headcount, budgets, money, support, and you're saying, I'm not good at it, and they think you are. You play a role in that, and that's what we call manipulation. And I say manipulation because the brand and image they have of you across everything greater than what you see in yourself. And that's energy spent. And by not closing that gap, you won't be able to spend the energy in the right places. So when I think about doing versus thinking, don't think about that. In fact, what I would argue is this: 1, 2, and 4. 1 and 2 is the strategy and thinking. 4 is the big ideas. You can first save energy by not spending time manipulating, lying, hiding, faking, trying to manage a brand in 1, 2, and 4. So trade off that to start and instead close the gap in 3 and 5. You said you're a disciplined person, but your peers and everyone else is saying even more disciplined than what you're giving yourself credit for, Amy. That's dangerous. So where can you close the gap there? You're saying that you tell the truth, right? And I think you said, I am very direct. I have no problems giving feedback, no LHF. Well, the problem is this: if they think you're great, they're not going to give you any feedback. They would only give you feedback if they think you can do better. But it sounds like to most of them, you're as good as they come. And that's something you're doing to manage that brand and impression. You're not going to get the feedback.
Yeah. Amy, actually, the piece that Charlie was just mentioning on number 5 on the LHF, that's the piece that I circled. You said, I'm very direct. I have no issue giving feedback, and I expect other people to be. And the no issue with it. And then you said, my peers agreed with that. But whatever, I forget exactly how you said, well, your peers rated you the 2, but why wouldn't you rate yourself higher, right? Because if you say I have no problem doing that, that's pretty, serious, right? You're like, I'm good at that. I feel that's a massive skill that you have. No, transparency, real time. It sounds like you're able to do that. Why wouldn't you rate yourself higher? And so is there something, I don't know, there's something there that I can't quite reconcile, right?
Can I say something? Yeah. Initially I thought that, okay, I'll just put 2 of each because kind of like meet expectation. But when I have to be very honest here, right? But when we do the PRT session, when I see Miranda, I think everything's relative, right? When I see Miranda and Rosie's GPS, the map, and I realized that I have a higher standard. And I thought, I shouldn't be giving 2. And then I wanted to give 3 for no discipline and 3 for LHF. And I would have, and now I reflect like I should have done that. Then I would be like 14, which is kind of close to my peers and coach. I think it's kind of relative because I see probably next jump has a higher standard, Miranda and Rosie, whereas my peers are from my colleagues, my friends.
But can I tell you? But Amy, here's a part that's not fully being discussed. You being exposed to higher standard before your friends rated you, you couldn't have influenced and raised the standard so they are even more honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Like if I go to someone saying, look, I know I'm in the role I am now, but my ambitions are much higher. Like I like to be even CEO of this from one day, right? So can you put high standards in this for me? I don't want you to be nice or kind. I want you to high standard me. Look beyond where I am today and look where I want to go. You could, of course, influence their standards. And you could even say, let me show you Miranda and Rosie's and what I've learned, right? I want that kind of high standard of me. But it's like going to a coach and saying, you know what, coach, don't be low standard on me. Can you coach me with high standards? And then that's what you would get. We do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a power we have.
That's a power we have to set it up, to get the truth, to get the brutal truth. Because you're saying, had that not been the case, if you didn't see the higher standard, you would have rated yourself a 3 or 4, in which case you would have matched up to the peers.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to say anything to them. I just say, okay, I have this DGPS. Can you just rate me? I'm being neutral without saying anything, so that I don't influence their decision or their comments to me.
But
Yeah.
you could say, so actually, so the next one we're going to do, I think would be interesting because it's way. We had a quick conversation before. By the way, I would encourage you, Amy, to use the family tab and try to see what the family chart looks like if they layer on top of this. Something interesting might show up for you because your family usually does hold you to high standards and they can see you all the time. So they have more signals. So try that. That might be interesting.
I actually asked my sister to do it. So one of the peers is my sister. Yeah.
But use the family tab, because if you average the sister in with everybody else,
are confusing.
It will average out.
Yeah.
Have the sister do the family version, or have your
very courageous, Amy, and have your sister do it. This is
spouse is even better usually, but yes. Spouse is scary.
Are you married, Amy? Are you married?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. She's like, I'm not going there.
I didn't think of exactly. It's like he's gonna be quite bossy, you know.
I don't know if you have children, but spouse and children will give you the most honest if you want to go there.
Yeah.
The question is, how much do you really want to know? I mean, that's an honest question. Some of us don't want to know.
I know.
It's better to drive life not knowing.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Amy, thank you.
Amy.
Turn your camera off, Amy.
All right,
and the way will go real quick. So I feel it's another comparison point.
Thank you.
The presenter coming up is Wei Wei. You have 5 minutes to present.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wei Wei, and I have been a neck jump for more than 10 years. This is my first Dev GPS evaluation. Next slide, Diane, please. Next. Here's my score and the graph. As you can see, I got close scores from myself, 4 peers, my manager, John, and my wife. From the score themselves, it seems I'm all set in terms of expectations and balance. I actually got stuck at this false negative balance for a very long time. This is the first time I actually see the nuance behind those scores, and that's why I think Dev GPS was a powerful tool for me to improve my self-awareness. When I saw the peer and the coach score are close to my self-score, I felt something not right, but I couldn't tell what exactly wrong. So I asked my wife to score me as well. It's not easy to convince her to get involved to this process at the beginning, until I told her I had to present to the company. She came to ask me what scores I want after she got the access to the system. I paused and said I want the truth. So she gave me the truth. When I saw her score indicating I'm more an armchair professor, I thought it made sense because I was the one saying more but doing less at home. Next slide. But when I used that GPS algorithm to understand 3 and 5, I saw much more than just being armchair professor. My peer score indicate that I'm on adequate zone, but my own sense making was I'm in the obvious zone. Next slide. Let me dive into the detail and share my takeaways. Today, I'm going to focus on number 3, 5, and 4, which are the fundamental components of level 1 and the pathway to the level 2. Starting with GPS 3, discipline. I used to think I'm the most consistent person in the world. I ate the same breakfast for 5 years. I read one chapter every day for more than 10 years. I have been working out twice every single week since we started weekend workout group a year ago. But when it comes to difficult stuff, especially those mental strengths like weekly on my minds, my undiscipline showed up. And when things getting harder or less certain, for example, ordering the COVID rapid test for core instructors and all neck jumpers. I went dark, stopped the updates to the team. My peers gave me 2, the same score as myself. My wife gave me 1 because she thinks I'm not consistent on routines and say-do gap was high. As for GPS 5, no lying, hiding, faking. I think I'm overall okay to expose my vulnerabilities or the mistakes I made, but it becomes harder to being truthful to those who work under me. I used to call them out directly, but I'm very hesitated to do the same anymore because I want to be seen as a more thoughtful manager. My peer point out that I'm comfortable with giving difficult feedback, but struggle to invite difficult feedback. I don't really take it serious because my narrative was I asked and welcomed the difficult feedback, but I couldn't force others to give me feedback when they don't want to. My wife's comments was the aha moment for me. She said, "This is the worst part. I have a feedback that's not agree with his mind. It's not taken at all, and I will end up in misery for several weeks for giving that feedback. I have been trained to stop giving difficult feedback just to make my life easier. It hurts, but that's the truth I asked for. There's so many times when I ignore or even humiliate team members in the meeting when they put out their point of view, made their life harder for giving me feedbacks. That's the reason people stop giving me feedback. GPS 4, speed and board. I think I tend to move fast and willing to take risks and trade-offs to moving even faster. I was glad that others see the same. My instincts was to focus on 4 and make this strong muscle even stronger. But I worried that my imbalance and bias on the speed would add bad on bad very quickly. I always need Henry to watch that imbalance for me. One time when Henry went to vacation, I pushed him to work on nights and weekends to meet my goal, just because Greg asked me if we could move the feedback app to AWS in 2 weeks. When Charlie and Megan was teaching the sequence of 3, 5, and 4, it made so much sense to me. Next slide. Thank you for the listening, and please give me the choose in the feedback app.
Audience, you have 2 minutes to enter your feedback in the feedback app for Weiwei. Please use dev GPS 10x as the meeting tag. Ten seconds remaining. Judges, please enter your rating in the 10x app. Judge ratings. 2.
Whoever's driving, can you just pull up that last slide way ahead with the dev GPS up there? So I have 4 things to share way. First, I gave you a 2, which says you're going in the right direction, but a 2 says it's fragile, meaning I could see you go wrong, back to the wrong direction. So just keep this in mind. So the second point I want to make is this. You said 3, 5, 4, kill 4. And the reason is because when we're trying to improve on something, we need to make trade-offs. The right sequence matters. The foundation is 3 and 5. So focus there, because trying to fix the other imbalances all at once will throw you off. So kill 4 for now, focus on 3 and 5 coming right. So within that, I'm going to start on 3 and then I'm going to walk through 5. So if you look at number 3, discipline and the hard stuff. Someone in the comments, I think, said we manipulate ourselves. This idea of manipulating yourself, you can believe you're disciplined by saying things like breakfast, saying things like reading, and you have clearly convinced your coach and your peers that's the case, or even subordinates. But your wife sees you, and she sees what you're not disciplined in, because we tend to not be disciplined on the thing that we need the most at that moment. That's why it's hard. It's hard for us because situationally we need it right now. And situationally things change in life, right? And that's the discipline that matters, not the breakfast anymore, not the other stuff that you already do. And so that's an interesting data point to think about. And so I would make a list of actually what you are good at versus what is the hard stuff, and then look at where the discipline matches against, and you'll see gaps. But I want to spend time on number 5, which is the most important. On number 5, this is interesting. Look at the chart of what it says. You match up to the coach, which says you're really good at managing up. Your energy matches up, and you've convinced yourself and you convinced your coach that you're telling the truth all the time. But then when you look at the peers, they're saying that's not true. So the peers scored you lower, saying you're not really telling the truth, Wei Wei. You're just managing up, which is what the coach convinced. The wife is saying, Wei Wei, you don't tell the truth. And this was interesting what you said. Even when you had told me what happened about the family, when you had asked your wife to go and score you, the first question she asked you when she realized you're going to present this is, what do you want me to put in for the score? And I love that your response was, I want the truth. But her first reaction was to ask you, what do you want me to put in? That means she knows you're managing up. She knows you want to show a good score to your bosses or your peers. And then when you said the truth, she gave you the truth, which is as low as it gets, which is a 1, saying you don't tell the truth. And you had said this comment, which I love. You know, when you trained yourself to stop giving difficult feedback, basically it's stop giving the full truth, because it makes their life easier. Because giving the truth, brutal honesty, is painful, especially in the short run. It's painful for you, the giver. It's painful for the receiver. And I think, Wei Wei, I had made this comment to you on this topic. If you actually focus on just short-term happiness, so I don't want to do anything painful for you or for me short-term. It's great for the short term. But how do you think it works out in the long term? When you're not telling the truth and they're not telling the truth, and you have decided speaking with me is a no truth zone, otherwise known as when you talk to me, let's just play poker. Let's go LHF. What happens in the long term when that's the default of what you do? So that's a very dangerous one to try to fix. But I like that you have the awareness. Thank God for your wife.
Yeah, thank God for her. Yeah, wait. For one, that's awesome that you did that you had your wife do this. That's hard stuff, right? I think I should, the fact that she's saying it almost makes my life easier to not give you the truth, because then I have to deal with kind of like the wrath of having given truth, which I think you experience with your own team, right? Because your team is, I think, basically saying the same thing, right? Which is, I'd rather not go there, right? And it's just a dangerous place to get to. But it's fascinating because we were thinking about this adequate zone though too, and I think we're going to talk about that more next week. But there is something about like not fully putting yourself out there, given like
playing safe.
You're playing safe. There's a lot of playing safe, and it's like, and it's interesting because it's like I feel like if you look at the 1, right, you've got like the highest scores on the future outlook. Like when I think of like the future outlook and the North Star and the optimism and success and what that looks like, you're getting scored higher by by the coach, by even your wife. And I'm like, I think it's because I don't know if you talk that game or not, but it's like, I think you've created a persona that you can do amazing things. And then it's like, but then why are you not doing it? Right. You know, like why?
The self-peer says no.
Yeah.
Even yourself, you're like, not
even
true.
Yourself, yeah.
Like think about the energy you spend to managing
that brand. Yeah. So it's obviously something to dig into more. But I do feel like I think you're getting more and more aware, which is awesome, Wei, because I feel like this is the beginning. So it's fantastic. I do feel like there's still, I like what you said on the 4, just drop the 4, because the 4 is going to use the whole thing of not getting
as
really
well as the 1 and 2 for now.
To start.
It's like, remember, you want to crawl before you walk, before you run. There's an order that matters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see what this looks like 3 months from now. Maybe
Yeah.
as the same
But
people do it
God, the
again.
discipline on the hard stuff though, we can all be disciplined, and then we use the discipline we have to be like, I'm disciplined. But are you disciplined on the hard stuff? The hard stuff for you is a totally different game.
Right.
And exposing that is really
hard.
hard. It's like, yes, I exercise, I'm this, I'm that, whatever. But the stuff that's really hard for me, I don't do, but I'm not telling you that. I'm not
I
gonna tell
have
you
these
that.
3 video games I love now. No matter how tired I am, I'm so disciplined. Every morning I play each of the rounds,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like no matter what, how
Oh.
tired, how busy, so disciplined.
No.
Right.
I love how you're so disciplined on that.
All right,
Thanks,
can
Amy.
we stop sharing screen? Wait, keep your camera on. Amy, can you come back on if you're here? I don't know if you had to leave or not, but would love to get, Amy, any thoughts you have, reflection. By the way, audience, you can turn your cameras on as well. If anyone who's here, it's still 88 people here, 87 now. Turn your cameras on. So just real quick, Amy, maybe starting with you, just unmute, reflections, thoughts, then Weiwei will ask you, and then we'll use the chat to ask anybody in the audience, any thoughts, questions, whatnot. So Amy, just go ahead. What are you thinking?
You have no problems giving direct feedback or
Show
Go
us.
for it.
Oh, I don't know. It's quite spontaneous. I really don't know.
You can
Because
let Weiwei-
when I come in here, I don't know what to expect, and I did ask like, do I need to prepare anything? There's no, and then like half an hour before the lead class, I said, oh, you need to do a presentation, so I wasn't prepared at all. I don't know really. Is there anything like you would like me, or you have advice for me to,
No,
to improve
so-
myself?
I mean, what's interesting is this, you weren't prepared at all, but you're talking about yourself, right? You're talking about an evaluation you saw. I'm more interested, what's going through your head right now? I mean, just be honest. It could be bad. It sounds like it's bad. If people struggle to say the bad stuff, so just tell us, doesn't matter.
Anything like, what are my thoughts?
I love it. People are saying it's harder to LHF without much time to prepare, but yeah, you can tell. Yeah.
I mean-
Or do you want Weiwei to go first and give you a chance to think?
sure.
Because
Okay.
it's nerve wracking.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's just give you a second.
Yes,
Weiwei,
but wait, catch yourself. If you actually have what you want to say, and then you're filtering and trimming it, just
you can write it down so you don't forget.
but try to be honest. Wait, quick thoughts you have, Weiwei? What's going through your head? You have to unmute, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, so as you know, I started my career in a very high-lying, hiding faking environment and trained in that system for 10 plus years before I joined next job. In my previous job, the first reaction to any series of bad events was to deny, hide, lie, to buy time for the system to make sure only one voice heard. That skill set make my career successful in the past, right? And I feel it's just a part of my body and mind. Like my wife always said like, I could cheat the polygraph because I believe that's the truth when I was telling a lie.
Right.
Learning the skill set to become an instinct muscle is very difficult, but unlearn that even more difficult if possible. So what will be the best way to unlearn stuff like that?
So wait. So we're going to talk about this next week because you need this to play offense. But think about a gated process. This idea of actually not filtering in real time, telling the truth on something is a very hard thing to do. So don't do it in a large group. So the gated process is, do you have one person in your life you can do that with? It's a near real time, unfiltered truth. Then when you master that or get enough traction, can you get it to 2 people? Before you can go to the ultimate goal, which is what we call everyone minus 2.
Mm-hmm.
I say minus 2 because in any given situation, there's going to be at least 2 places that it will be lethal to tell the truth, right? Imagine going to a field full of snipers. This is where I am. This is where I am. Very dumb, right? They will snipe you and kill you, meaning you need to know that's where you want to get to. But start with, can I find one place, right?
To be honest.
So we'll talk more about that next week.
Yeah. Yes.
Amy, quick thoughts? You want to unmute her?
Yeah. Okay. When I come here, I have a intention. Like I want to have a clarity on how do I move from doing to thinking. So, but after your coaching, it seems that I need to concentrate on 3 and 5. So I'm a bit mixed up now. So should I? It's like, so what should I do? It's like.
Well, I think the lesson is the first step is awareness.
Yeah.
You have gaps in awareness across every step, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're saying it's easier to first address the gaps in awareness in 3 and 5 before you go to the really hard stuff. The awareness and future outlook and looking at the past and innovative big ideas is going to be even harder. So start, given that you have gaps everywhere, on 3 and 5. Often 3 is the easiest, discipline. Why do they all think you're so disciplined, your coach and your peers, but you don't? So what do they not know about you that you're hiding or faking or something that you know, only you know? Or did you lie about the score and discipline?
I felt probably I have less self-confidence.
Yeah, but self-confidence isn't discipline. I mean, discipline and the hard stuff. Like, there must be things that you know you should do, but you don't do. Right? Like, you know, if you score yourself low on discipline on the hard stuff, you're saying, I know I should be doing this. Like, you know, some people, like, for example, like to read like Us Weekly and trashy magazines, but they know I should be reading this, right? I'm in the financial space. I should probably be reading the Wall Street Journal, but I can't help myself but to read Us Weekly instead. I'm just making this up. But like, you know what I'm saying?
Could it be the difference of the standard? Like, to me, I put myself number 2, but because I see that there are rooms to improve, like 3, 4, and 5, I need to go more. But to them, it's like Amy is already delivering on time or sometime over it.
So
you know what I mean? It's like,
so you know what I would do, Amy? So then on your chart, I can't remember who ranked highest. Was it peers or coach? On the discipline.
I think the peers did.
So find a peer that, you know, I mean, with 9 peers, I'm sure, just pick 2 of them just in case, you know, but talk to 2 of them and said, hey, can you do me a favor and just be totally honest, brutal honesty, like the way I'll give you, right? Because I can be really critical on you. So you want to raise their bravado to fight.
It's like, what is it
Tell
about
me, what is it about me that's so amazing and so awesome that made you give a score like that on discipline? And get the list in detail. This is the ladder of inference. Just rattle off. I mean, you must have a lot, right? Which is why you scored me high. And see how long that list is and see what it is. Because if you look at that list, you might say, oh my God, they don't know anything about me on this other stuff. Versus, what are you holding back that you know? You're saying I'm not as disciplined as I could be. 2 is saying I'm disciplined adequately, but there's a lot more I can do. What is that a lot more? Is it like unrealistic stuff? Like I should be more disciplined and trying crazier stuff like skydiving? Because I'm not sure that's true. Like that's like the unrealistic, you know, like I don't know what it is, but there's too many gaps, right? And when you operate with a lot of gaps with people you work with, you'll see over time it leads to very bad things. They think you're better at this than I think I am. That means you'll be put into positions that.
Yeah, and I think the reason we're saying it's like you came into it on that you wanted to get better in the thinking and kind of making that transition as a leader. And I think what we're saying is that you're going to bring even the slightest gaps in awareness, those biases, which we're all going to have some, is just trying to close the gap because you're going to bring those biases, those blind spots into the thinking work.
It's a blind spot. That's what it is.
It's a blind spot.
Gaps in awareness is a blind spot.
It's a blind spot. So that thinking work, it just isn't going to be as good as if you can decrease your blind spots. You're going to make better decisions.
Amy, I know this is, I mean, I don't believe you ever FBI SWAT teamed, but we've done a lot of work with, say, the FBI and the SWAT teams. Can you imagine when you have a team of 5 going through a dangerous situation? Isn't it potentially lethal if they don't know each other well enough? If the one going in says, I'm really bad at this, and everyone's like, oh my God, this person's amazing. They wouldn't even think twice and put you in front of those situations. A situation that needed big ideas, oh my God, Amy goes in, right? A situation where someone needs to tell the truth, oh, Amy goes in. She's the best at this. See the danger that occurs when there's a mismatch. Because you'll be like, I kind of am not, but then they're like, no, but you are. Like, and so then are you truly being fake humble? Or are you like being truthful? Like there's a part where the disconnect is the issue.
I'm thinking, right? Could I be like, should I be more confident on myself?
No, but it's not a confidence issue.
It's a balance of confidence and humility, right? Maybe I'm just too humble. I don't know.
Can I tell you why I say it's not a confidence issue? Like, because confidence is what the role people put, oh, I'm so insecure, right? I'm scoring myself so low. Okay, that could be true. The other side is this. It's not the truth. A gap in awareness is simply saying it's not the truth. And why is the truth distorted? From the view of every peer, 9 peers for your case, maybe even the next jump coaches, as well as your work coaches, right? Why is every view and every data point distorted from the truth, from where you see yourself to that? And just even the quick interaction I have with you, I do not believe it's a confidence issue. People who are not confident do not utter phrases like this.
I'm very direct and I have no issue.
No
giving
problem
critical
giving feedback.
Yeah.
That people who are not confident.
That's not an insecure person speaking.
Yes.
That's not an overly
Yeah.
humble person.
That's the thing, you know, it's like deep inside me, I feel like I'm no confidence. And you're not the first one who told me. Like, I talked to my line manager and a few other like colleagues and friends. They say you are one of the most confident person that I talk to, but deep inside me, I don't feel so. And I'm shivering. My hands are so cold now. My feet are so cold now. You know what I mean?
But so, I want you to think this though. But this is the part about you think you have nothing to do with that. If they think you're one of the most confident people, you have to have done stuff, put out signals that make them believe that. I mean, if we never met you, how would we know? But even in the PRT group, you're in the small group, I'm sure they're rating you high. What are you doing that's doing that? But if you imagine going and saying, you know, people keep ranking me confident, but honestly, my hands are shivering, my feet are cold right now. That's telling the truth. But you clearly don't volunteer those data points often, is my guess. But you do something else that makes them distort the truth. And then the question is this: how painful is it, or how much energy is spent now to keep up the charade? They keep saying you're the most confident person I know. You know, like it's not true. You're probably not correcting it, or maybe you act humble and correct it. But how aggressively do you correct it? Because if not, you have to keep up the charade, right? Yeah. It's like, you know what? Why don't we hear from someone who's confident? You know, imagine when you're in a room with 10 people and someone says, you know what, this is a really tough problem. Someone's got to go into the hard stuff. Why don't we hear from someone really confident? Yeah. You know, they're all thinking Amy, because that's what they think of you. And even though you're not, you might even convince yourself, I have to speak. I am the most confident of this group, when the reality might be not true. This is about the pursuit of truth, not the pursuit of brand management either way. And we've somehow been brainwashed through this crazy thing called the internet, that brand management, one way is bad, the other way is good though. You know, ooh, weak me, I don't know, I just need to get more confident, you know, I don't think highly enough of myself. Oh, people love people like that because they love encouraging them, right? Yes. They hate the other side. I think I'm really smart. Humble up, like, humble up, you're so arrogant. They hate that, and they praise the other side. Right. No, both are bad. You need the truth.
The thing is, when I go and do the things, I look at my intention. If my intention is I can help them, I'll just do it. And I think that intention helps me to be confident unconsciously.
But put it this way, how would you like a doctor, right? So how about this? Say you get COVID, but there's a foot doctor, right? My intention is to help you, right? You're about to die, but like my intention is to help you. And so I just jump in confidently versus, shouldn't you first volunteer? Yes. I have no expertise in COVID. Although I'm a doctor, I can look at your feet and help you. Wouldn't you like to know that before you act confidently to help me? Just as I just made up the example. Meaning like, wouldn't I like to know that your hands are shaking and your feet are cold, but you're still going to try to help me, right? With confidence. But I want you to know I'm a little nervous on this one because of boom, 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 these reasons. As opposed to, I don't volunteer the first part, you just jump in. And then when you do it wrong, and I'm thinking, I'm so confused. I thought she knew how to do this.
Yeah. Like for me, I will tell you in advance. Like I don't have experience in this. Like I told my HOD, like I don't have experience in consultancy. I don't have experience in business analysis. And you want me to do it? Are you sure? They say, yeah, I want you to do it. So I'll just go and do it. You know, to me, it's like if a task is assigned to me, I will do it. I'll just do it.
No, but Amy, this is the part, the ladders of inference. You have to practice volunteering a lot more information on that.
Versus I don't have experience in this. You're saying you have to go.
Let me tell you what I mean by I don't have experience. The last time I touched something like this, I really botched it up, right? And here's how I'm thinking of doing it, right? So despite not knowing how to do it, this is my approach. And these are my assumptions. Right. And someone will say, what? That's how you're going to approach it? Like, then, like, this is the part where you're now volunteering why I don't have confidence in it. But as opposed to, I don't have experience, but I'll do it. That sounds like someone trying to act humble, right? Yeah. You're just acting nice, humble, right?
No, like, to me, it's like my boss asked me to do it. I have to do it. You know, it's like, to me, like my mindset is.
Yeah, but what he's saying, I think Charlie's saying, is you can still volunteer. I've never done this before. I've done something similar. Here's what happened. Here's what I'm thinking. You can still share.
No, but or you can, a lot of times bosses have to cross this fork. There's nobody, I think, that can get this done. But I need to get this done. And now I've got a bunch of people who just refuse to do it and tell me they're going to do it poorly. Versus I have someone who's saying, I don't know how to do it, but I'll give it my best shot. I'm going to go with Amy, right? But this is the part you can say, okay, like I'm just telling you, like I'm super nervous and all the reasons. Let me tell you how I'm going to do it and my approach, right? And if you still want me to do it, I will do it still, like because I want to help you. But let me give you all the upfront reasons why I'm not confident. Versus the way you do it, you sound like a good soldier, right? And you probably have done that enough times, that brand builds, people keep thinking, well, these people just complain about it and act victims and already give me the losing speech before even trying. Amy just looks like she's humble. She's a little nervous, as should be. No one knows how to do this, but she's going to go after it full force. My shot of winning this game is better with her than those people who already gave me the losing speech before they even began. You keep getting the tasks. Well, when it doesn't work out and you're wondering like kind of what happened, like you may even chalk up, it was impossible anyways. I told them I didn't know how to do it, but did you really tell them you didn't know how to do it? The level of detail. And I'm just saying the gap in awareness is the issue. Over time, it will hurt you. It will hurt people close to you that you care about.
I mean, if we had more time, Amy, I'd be so curious to even reflect on the beginning of your PRT group. I'm curious, like the past career, what happened? Because I think if you look at for stories of when things like this have happened, where you had a manager give you something, you didn't quite know, but you're like, I'm going to get this done because I'm supposed to tell my manager I'm going to get this done. Like I can't say no.
I'm supposed
like what
to.
Happened. I'm supposed to. Because I feel just generally speaking, and then if you're not transparent about what's happening and then they find out it didn't work out later, now they're really pissed, right? Because they thought you were on it and you didn't get it done or you didn't get it done right and there was issues, but then you weren't transparent about it. And now you're like really in trouble.
You know what's fascinating? It's fascinating, this idea of the no LHF. The one part of the phrase people always leave out is, I am supposed to. Imagine if you said to your boss, your manager, someone, right? I'm supposed to say yes. That's the red flag. Wait, what do you mean you're supposed to say yes? Based on what? Like people leave that first part out. They just say yes. If you said, I'm supposed to, because then it's saying, I don't really agree with it, but I'm supposed to say yes.
That would be the truth.
You know, like when you go to your, when you first met your husband, you go to his family's house for dinner and the mom cooks. If you said, how's the meal? How was my cooking? If you said, I'm supposed to say, I love it and this is great. You see how you get a very different response, but this is amazing, great. Like, but this is what we do with managers.
Yeah.
If you actually said the truth, I'm supposed to be excited and say yes to this. So that's what I'm going to say. They'll be like, no. You'll see they want the truth.
They want the truth.
What do you mean you're supposed to? What do you actually feel? I want to know why. I want to know the details. And in fact, by the way, can we go back to the I'm supposed to say? Why are you saying that? Did I do something? Did some other boss say? Did I say something before that got mad at you when you told me the truth? So now you feel I'm supposed to lie.
I felt that I'm truthful. Like if I do not know how to do it, I will tell my boss like I don't know how to do it. But if you still trust me to do it, like well, I won't say up front like I'm gonna do this because I need time to go back and think how I'm gonna do it with the approach. Like on the spot, I will say, okay, if you want me to do it, I will do it, but give me some time and I'll go back and think about it and come back with the approach, but like a couple of days later, not on the spot.
So Amy, you know what, just for the sake of time, I want to hear from some of the audience members. Rosie and Miranda, I'm looking at them. These two are next jump experts. I think they'll be able to help you work through it. If there's one thing I would just give you as an experiment then, the next time you meet with your boss and they ask you to do something, just utter the words, I'm supposed to say yes, and see what happens. You'll see the conversation takes a very interesting turn. No, but you'll get the truth. There's a part of you have to want the truth.
Well, I'm supposed to say yes. You mean I should tell them I'm supposed to say yes?
Yes, which is why I'm saying yes. Try that and see what happens.
That's not the truth, right?
You don't want to do. No, but it'd be the truth if you don't want to say yes.
If you really don't want to say yes, and you don't.
If I really don't want to say yes.
Rosie and Miranda, I'm looking at them right now. They know what I'm talking about. They'll coach you through it. But quick, anybody else in the audience that's left, use the chat. Punch in what's on your mind, questions, thoughts, and any of it, your experience even participating in it. Because this program 10X is developed so that you're part of it. You're not just a backseat driver. You were You got the same information we got, you got to give the feedback to, and then you got to bounce it against what we saw. And the question is, how was your OODA loop? How was your sense making, your OODA? Because you're seeing what we saw in the same time you saw in 5 minutes each for each of them. So let me give you 15 seconds. Punch into the chat what's on your mind, thoughts, and then we'll try to address maybe one or two, and then we'll go. Still like 50 something people here.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we'll give you a second. Laura's questions. Hey, Laura, do you want to unmute and ask your question? It's really your question.
Sure. I was just thinking that, like, you know, the beginning of this, if you're like looking to crawl before you walk and run and stuff, is like 3 and 5, right? So I was just curious if there was a sequence, like, do you kind of press harder on discipline or press harder on LHF in terms of like training and getting that right, or if it's important that they kind of go hand in hand and you balance it out?
I was gonna say, I feel like it's like that 1-2 punch. I feel you start with the discipline, right? I think you got to start with the routine, like with that hard stuff. If you're, because I think if you start with too much truth in the beginning, sometimes it can be hard to get going. So I think there's a part of like just starting the hard work, right? Whatever that might be. So, and like,
I just slightly different.
Okay.
I just like, you know what's nice about having 3 and 5? It gives me
levers.
2 paths, 2 levers to win. And sometimes we don't know which is the better one, because situation in our life is different. For example, like maybe you have nobody you can really talk to, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I work in a 1-person startup and nobody knows what I'm doing. So in that case, the no LHF for the person might be harder, right? I'm just making that up, right? Like, or a 1-person department may be harder than someone who has a team. Like, so I might press another one first. But if I'm pressing on discipline and I'm getting return, once again, keep doing it. But it starts fatiguing or not returning. And rather than getting frustrated and bang, maybe I'll try to press the other lever. So it's always nice having that dual lever, because only through actually doing the work will you find which one is going to pay off more. It's all about like, you know, it's like going on a diet, and there's ways to, you know, there's 2 ways to lose weight. One is change your nutrition. The other one is basically exercise. So which one do you do first? Well, you're going to do a little bit of both, but whatever, it's like, exercise is really hard because they locked us down when we're in China for 90 days in the house. Maybe that's I said that's hard. Nutrition might be easier to start. Or like, it's hard to eat healthy in this environment. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's nice to have 2.
Olivia, are you here, Olivia? Can't see.
You want to unmute, Olivia?
Yeah, go ahead and unmute.
Hello. So yeah, that part of his presentation I really identified with, because I kind of feel like that kind of encapsulates how I am. Like I most definitely have the imposter syndrome, but more so not like trying to buffer my feelings, but just trying to like control like the temperature of the room all the time. And so I find that in my experience, I do kind of like filter the way that I do things, the way that I think, what I say, to try to like make other people's lives seemingly easier, or to like avoid conflict and things like that. So that really hit me, because in the PRT sessions, when we start talking about our actions on RABs and things of that nature, I started noticing that although for me, I thought I was creating like a comfortable environment for people, it was actually doing the opposite. So people have like these truths that they wanted to tell that were just kind of like bubbling under the surface of like, hey, Olivia, like you're not as transparent, or you know, you say one thing and you act another way. Like a lot of inconsistencies that I wasn't seeing and that people aren't telling me because of that. So that really like hit home with me.
So you know what's interesting? There's 2 thoughts in this. One is I love something Brene Brown shared with us, you know, how difficult it is to build trust. Trust gets built with little actions and even big actions over long periods of time. But do you know how quickly we can lose trust? In one simple action, everyone's like, you just burn everything, right? So what's happening is that difference you're talking about. What you said is not what, you know, the way you actually manage this, you acted all happy when you're not. And the problem is this, once that negative part shows up, that's where you lose the trust and the credibility with them instantly. And it will take a lot of scrolling while to build it back up. So one hand, you're going to burn all the good stuff you did, trying to hold back, be the peacekeeper and all that stuff. You're going to lose all of that goodness and trust, boom, in one move. And that's horrible, right? So you have to realize that's the cost of not being yourself. But the thing that you're not seeing even more is this. If I had a guess, Olivia, you go to situations with other people and it must be exhausting.
It is. I'm
It is
drained.
exhausting afterwards. You need a drink. You want to be alone. You don't want to talk to people. I want to bury myself either in song, music, meditation, alcohol. Just get away from it. Versus, and you're like, it must be because I'm an introvert, right? That's how stable it. That's why, no. Like the reason you're exhausted is because it's like when you go to play a poker game with your life savings, right? Go try to bluff and see how stressful you feel risking your life savings. You will see that, oh my God, I am, it's exhausting, right? Because I could lose this money or I could make money. And I'm using the example of poker because bluffing is exhausting. But
also, it also comes out sideways, right? I mean, because Olivia, I identify with that, right? I think even when you said, it's like you think you're creating this comfortable environment for people, but you're actually doing the opposite. It does take a lot of energy. It's like,
well, in the short run, it is creating the comfort environment for everyone.
For everyone in the short run.
Painful for you always.
Painful for self, for everybody else that's trying to keep it copacetic.
Yes.
But then, as that accumulates and you're holding all the real feelings in, that's where I feel like you burst, right? It's like you compensate until you break.
So you want to know how the worst case scenario happens? So Olivia spends all this time making everyone feel comfortable, right? And it's exhausting for you, right? You sacrifice that much to get everyone's happiness.
Yes.
But then you do one thing, right? You've done 99 good things to help them. You do one thing and suddenly they don't like you. And now you're fucking pissed, right? Are you kidding me, right? I have sat here listening to your stupid jokes, doing everything to keep the peace and happy. You're going to judge me.
Is that what happened to me in the lip and that woman?
Could be. But like this idea of being
trying to hold this deep.
Like,
sorry.
wait,
that's holding a lot of stuff.
But that's called accumulated baggage. Accumulated issues.
Oh yeah.
I've been accumulating the truth of what I wanted to say.
Yes.
And then in the one slip up I have in this game of LHFing, you're now punishing me, and I need to go off on you because I need to talk about the other 99 that I did not tell you the truth on. And they're like, what the hell happened here? Yeah. I thought Olivia was a nice person.
It's like having a fight with your spouse and it's like over, what I just had one with Mark a few months ago, something so stupid, dropping the kids off from school. And finally I was like, it's not about that. It's about, and then you're like, oh, it's not about that. Like it's about something more. It's so stupid, but we're like holding on to it. And then it comes out in the most perverse.
My mom would do this when I was growing up. I grew up in Nigeria and Africa. And so like my mom would cut my hair kind of like COVID times, but actually all the time. And I don't know why. It's like once a month to get a haircut. She just chose when she has me locked up with her scissors in hand to go and dump out the truth the last month that she didn't share. And it's like, oh, it's a scary, scary time.
And Olivia's saying, yes, it blindsides the other person. This is the ugly part. I hate that feeling. It's the worst feeling because you're like, God, I've been trying to keep the peace, right? But the weight on you.
All the stuff you wanted to say, you didn't say for this whole time.
I mean, I've done that to my 8-year-old and he's looking at me like, what the? And I've like venom because I'm not correcting. Like when you said this, when you did this, when you're not doing, it's like, it just builds up over, even if it's like a week.
But again, can I tell you why it gets really fucked up? Messed up? Yeah. So here's what ends up happening. The other person doesn't see your response as a response to the other 99 things. They think the other 10 things. Situation. They microanalyze that one situation and they think, it must have been a word I used that pissed her off. Or it must be this, and they will associate it with something in that situation because they don't remember the other 9 or 10 or 99.
You're right.
And so then next time they're with you now, they will overcompensate on that one thing they identified. Mm-hmm. which has nothing to do with what it is. The problem is, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's the 99 other pieces of straws in accumulation. But because you didn't come clean in real time, they're misreading the signal and they adjust their game. The whole thing goes haywire. And now you're like, wait, what are we doing and talking about? Wait, wait, you think I hate this? Wait, what? Where'd you think that? Like, and this is where you have these unproductive, what they call playing politics, super LHF conversations. And I keep reminding people, we're on the same team. We're on the same team trying to accomplish the same mission, right? And I'm like, it's so frustrating because you're not telling me the truth. And they're like, I'm not telling you the truth. Like, and so then like, it gets dysfunctional. And what's happening in, by the way, almost every company, but I would argue now in almost every country, is exactly that. I don't know about you, but do you trust the CDC? I was telling Weiwei, I don't. I don't trust the US CDC, nor the Chinese CDC, because those two people lied in the beginning. They didn't tell us the truth. I trust the Israeli CDC. I trust Singapore, Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia CDC. I want to hear them talk because they seem to be telling the truth, despite how difficult it is, right? Like, that's the part that happens now. Like, people keep saying the CDC says, and I was like, I don't know if I trust them so much on this topic. They shared quite adamantly that face masks doesn't make a difference. Like, I'm like, that's kind of troubling to me. Like, so there's all these things where, once again, I'm just giving you sort of my, top of mind thoughts on COVID. But like but this is kind of the world we live in. What's real news and what's fake? What expert has a hidden agenda and what expert is actually telling you the truth? We don't have a lot of people in our lives that we can go to for the truth. We can go and think we get the truth. And we make real life decisions in everything we see. But when we don't have the truth, it's not about happiness in the short term. We'll make all the wrong calls. Because if you don't get the truth, you make the wrong calls. You make the wrong calls, it has a consequence. So in the first part, your own mental sanity and mental health, you probably will need a little less alcohol, a little less whatever it is to make you feel better after your emotional energy, mental energy is drained from playing poker or bluffing with people who are supposed to even be friends.
Yeah, it's like sitting at the poker table for like 10
and
hours
by the
a
way,
day.
can I tell you, like Mega and I have spent years trying to even work on this constant, we still do. But when you find one person, right? Call that person a TP, a training partner, but maybe you'll have to get to two. When you find one person where you can just be yourself with, do you know how energizing that is? It fills your cup. Because if whatever I'm thinking, I can talk it out and get it out, bring it to light, it does the opposite of what Olivia's feeling.
Yeah.
It energizes. And so then someone says, oh, it's because I'm an extrovert, not an introvert. No. Put all those labels aside. It's because lying is fucking hard, right? Yeah. LHFing is so exhausting. As soon as you have a relationship, a human being, not a machine, right? Not a self-journal. You don't have to do that. You will find a source of energy that you're like, I do not know how I operated without this in my life. And every time you feel depleted, you go back to that person because that person just talking can energize you. You need to find a way to preserve that human energy back. Next week, we'll go into offense, basically how to win, which is making a big assumption that we'll now play defense better, trending, hope we get better. Next week, we'll teach how to play offense. And then we'll go back around and circle the
Yes, because it's like defense, offense, yes.
All right.
Hard stuff. I know Al was asking one last question. She was just asking, the company cultures don't accept this kind of like basically authenticity, and you're rewarded for the LHFing.
Well. So when you say, usually you're not, when you do authenticity, you can be fired. That's absolutely true.
Yes.
When you say rewarded, watch who gets rewarded. Are there cases that slip out? The complete political backstabbing, two-faced a-hole keeps getting promoted, absolutely happens. But usually it catches up because the people around them know. And you know what? How many of the best people want to work for that two-faced, lying, manipulative, right? The best ones, the truth in the long run wins. So in the industrial age, what you're saying was absolutely true. Information flowed slower. Do you know, like we've done all this work with the military and they're all concerned of protecting the authority needed to get people to risk their lives at war, so they don't want to tell the truth. But in that discussion we had with an auditorium of 1,000 people, behind the scenes through WhatsApp and text messaging, group messaging, 400 people already told about the schmuck that's in charge. And they're thinking they're controlling the information. The days of controlling the truth is long gone. And the problem is now there's so much opinion being flown around as complete truth. Nobody quite knows, right, what truth there is, but information flying, and you need to learn how to navigate the truth. So we'll cover this more, this idea of optics versus the truth. The people who navigate even the narratives, the optics, the best, usually start with a foundation of truth. The people who generally are hit or miss or generally suck are the ones who don't focus on truth, but focus always on optics. Always on what should I say first, and then I'll reverse engineer to maybe the truth if it's convenient. You got to learn to reverse this. If not, like, I mean, you're just not going to last. And if you do get away with it for a while, it's like it's almost like being in the gang, right? Like for the mafia, at some point when they discover you, they shoot you on the spot, right? The truth comes out. Now, there's some people who are really good undercover, so good luck. But like, you know, it's not an effective way to live your life nor operate. So, all right. I hope that helped. Sorry, it's kind of a long one, but this is a big topic. So, love more feedback from you guys. If you don't want to give it in the chat, use the app. We'll see you next week on how to play offense.
Week. And Mackie, we can't wait to hear what you're gonna do.
Congrats, Mackie. Well deserved. Well deserved. Very cool.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
And for everyone who's still here, I am going to quickly share my screen. If you want to leave some feedback on today's session, you've got QR codes that will take you directly to the meeting tag. We always appreciate your comments, and it's completely anonymous. And we hope to see you at future COA sessions, and we'll give a couple moments for you to get your thoughts. Thanks, everybody. Take care.